Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. So we're going to continue with our book study of the Cosmic Doctrine. In fact, tonight we're going to read the final two chapters, which are chapters 30 and 31. So we're going to read those two chapters, and they're about 10 pages or so. Next week, we're going to fully complete the text and reading the addendum. I believe that's what it's called, the addendum. Let's see. Afterthoughts, right? The Afterthoughts is like 30 pages, so that's a whole book read in itself. We'll do that next week. So this week is going to be a little bit shorter than the others as we conclude with chapter 30 and 31. So I hope you're having a great evening. I hope that you're ready to process the last bits of Dion Fortune's transmission from the higher planes. And hopefully this information has served to give you clarity and understanding in the work that you've been undertaking thus far. So, peace and greetings to everyone here. Let's get my phone into this meeting so that we can move forward. Peace to my favorite people. Peace in the chat. Sunshine Chick, always good to see you. Anna Molly, peace. Hope you're having a great evening. Ero, peace and greetings. ACW, my fellow cyclomate, peace. Mystical Koala, peace and greetings. Kevin Wise, peace. Tesla Coil Ray, peace. Cosmic Traveler, peace. Sly, peace. Etheric, peace and greetings. Fat Tony, peace and welcome. Digital Alchemist, peace. Tesla Coil Ray says, hey, do you sell the physical cyclomancy workbooks themselves? I saw on your site that you have physical workbooks that help you stay consistent with your practice. I DM and sent you an email. Yeah. We can. I'll get with you after this book study. Okay, so I'm uploading my phone to this video so that we can continue. Hazard Pie, fresh out the grease, hot and moisturized. Hope you're having a good evening. Okay, I think that we're here. One of these microphones are going to have to cut off. All right, so let's see if that works. Yep. Because for whatever reason, when I try to live stream just from my phone, it doesn't work. So I've got to use this app now. Let's get this thing started right. Jay Bald, hey, all peace and greetings. I know that you're not going to be here, but hey, it's going to be a short one. We got one more after this, so you're all right. This book has certainly been a game changer and an eye-opener. I can tell you that for an absolute fact. There was a particular section in this book where she talked about when you're working with higher forces, in order to have balance and really even things out, you want to employ lower forces to engage in a similar type of work. And I did some meditating on that. I did some practice on that and came to find that this is where you're really dealing with these elementals in a hands-on way. You have to remember that the planes kind of reverse. on each level, from masculine to feminine to masculine, etc. So with you in the center, what you're stirring up above with higher forces, that's gonna be the masculine aspect. You're gonna be the feminine aspect receiving that. And then what you want to do to continue the balance is to employ elemental type of spirits to serve as the lower masculine aspect, as above, so below. And you are the intermediary between those two, completing the circuit of force. Perhaps that's something you can look into on your own time. So somebody said it was a slight echo. Is there still an echo happening? Just a second. Figure out how I did this last time. There we go. Okay. No echo. Book full screen. Good to go. All right. So as I said, we are going into chapter 30. We'll do 30 and 31. That'll give you something to contemplate, and then we'll come back and read the the afterthoughts. Like I said, this is a whole 30 pages itself of her really, putting the icing on the cake of this entire book. And who does not like icing on their cake? All right, let's begin. Hope you got your coffee ready. Chapter 30. The Law of the Attraction of Outer Space. Show of hands in the chat. Who already read this chapter? The Law of the Attraction of Outer Space. In considering the law of the attraction of outer space, we have first to inquire about how it is that the attraction of outer space is able to overcome the attraction of the center. In order to understand this problem, we have to consider certain basic aspects of the universe, which have been previously described. The logoidal consciousness, having attained equilibrium, has achieved perfection, and having attained that which it had conceptually realized, propounds a further conception and seeks its realization. These formal concepts already conceived within the logoidal consciousness are continued into more complex syntheses, thereby partaking the nature of succeedingly developed phases of manifestation, or to express the same idea in another terminology, are passed outward down the planes of manifestation. The growing points of the logos are projected into manifestation as evolutionary impulses. The thrust outward, then, is initiated by the logos, and form succeeds form in phases of manifestation down the planes, the will of the logos which projects the forms, ensouling them with life. The thrust outward then is initiated by the logos, and form succeeds form in phases of manifestation down the planes, the will of the logos which projects the forms, ensouling them with life. To me, that sounds a whole lot like the pattern and the downflow of the elements of the tattvas, right? From the Akashic down to Vayu, down to Tejas or Agni, down to Apas, and then down to Prithvi. It's a degradation of vibration, but all at the same time encapsulating soul. Now it is ever the aim of will to function unconditioned, just as it is ever the tendency of form to condition the unmanifest. There's a key occult principle right there. Let's highlight that. That's a key occult principle because I tell you that is the tendency of divine masculine and divine feminine. Right? We talked about this before. It has nothing to do with the physical body and everything to do with behavior, everything to do with pattern. Reality is a pattern-based system and nothing more. It's a pattern-based, pattern-propagating system. So when you learn how to identify patterns, then you're actually playing the game. So I'll read that again. Now it is ever the aim of will to function unconditioned. That's the masculine aspect. Just as it is ever the tendency of form to condition the unmanifest. That's the feminine aspect. So just to kind of make it basic, you can think that the masculine aspect has this desire to roam free, to not be bound, to not be limited, to just do whatever it wants, whenever it wants. And it says here the feminine has a tendency of form to condition the unmanifest. So to take what doesn't have a form and to package it up and to give it a form, to give it substance, right? To give it, to give it a medium to express itself through. So you put those two forces together and you get the life that we experience and the life that all things experience. That's your Shiva and Shakti. That's your Purusha and Prakriti. Now it is ever the aim of will to function unconditioned, just as it is ever the tendency of form to condition the unmanifest, and the will to live of the logos always entering upon the conditioning form, which as it were, it pushes ahead of itself down the planes, is irked by the form. But in the later phases of the logoidal life, unconditioned will is impossible. In the later forms of logoidal life, unconditioned will is impossible. All action being determined by what? Pre-existing conditions. I want you to think about free will. And everyone who thinks that they have free will, right? As long as you have a physical body and memories, you don't have free will. And here's why, right? In the later phases of logoidal life, unconditioned will is impossible. All action being determined by pre-existing conditions. And the will to live of the logos, which is the life of the manifested universe, has to submit to conditions and be bound in form. Hence the warfare between spirit and flesh. So let that also be an indicator of what I said about the as above, so below working. If the above aspect of your spiritual work, dealing with higher entities, angels, and other spirits of a more evolved nature than yourself, they would provide the masculine aspect of unconditioned will. You would be playing the feminine aspect in taking that will and giving it form, giving it substance, giving it a medium to express itself through. You then would employ forms lower than yourself, or I should say, spirit lower than yourself, which would serve as the lower masculine, which you have contained, you have disciplined, you have conditioned, and it has to submit to you. You see how that works? At every level, there's an exchange of masculine to feminine, and you've got to be able to identify what you're playing with, if what you want to do is to steer the ship. What you're wanting to do is to steer the ship. The life and the will of the logos then expresses itself through succeeding phases of form until the densest phase is reached. It can no further project the conditioning vehicle of its manifestation, and it strives to free itself from the bondage of form and continues onward to employ a metaphor of space towards those areas of the ether which have not been circumscribed and conditioned by the primal locoidal will. It wants to see the grass that's greener on the other side. It is the endeavor of conditioned life to become unconditioned, which forms the prime urge, which projects it towards outer space. Is that why you're constantly seeking towards the unknown? Is that why you're bored with mundane life and constantly trying to reach for something that you don't even know what you're reaching for? It's in the DNA of your soul. Secondly, there's the natural tendency towards equilibrium and of the forces under high pressure within a manifested universe to diffuse themselves into the comparative vacuum of outer space. I'll read that again. Secondly, there is the natural tendency towards equilibrium, right? That's the state of the universe, equilibrium. And in other words, justice. And it's not justice as you would see it, or in a Batman DC comic. It's not about how you feel. The justice we're talking about is the equilibrium and balance of energy. It's not about you feeling good or feeling bad. It's about equilibrium. Now, you can use your feelings to navigate that equilibrium, but justice being served means everything, everywhere, at every time is in harmony. And I tell you what, it has more to do with your perspective. Because in truth, we're already there. It's just your perspective that's out of harmony. That's why you see disharmony. That's why you see evil and discord and pain and suffering. It's you. It's nothing outside of you. It's you. So again, secondly, there is a natural tendency towards equilibrium and of the forces under high pressure within a manifested universe to diffuse themselves into the comparative vacuum of outer space. All right, so we talked about that first line. The universe is about equilibrium. Along with that, there's a natural tendency of these forces, right? There are forces that are under high pressure within a manifested universe. You just talked about that. Forces that desire to be free and uncontained, unconditioned. It's their natural tendency to just be expansive, right? Not cooped up and trapped up into a form. That's not the natural state of this energy. So she says that there's forces under high pressure within a manifested universe, right, to diffuse themselves into the comparative vacuum of outer space. This is why we race towards death. This is why we race towards death at full speed. Even though you might not translate it as that, but this is why a lot of people live reckless and wild without a care in the world. Deep down inside, they don't even want to be here. And it's not necessarily about, oh, I'm depressed and I don't love my life. It's more about what they've recognized is alien to this world. Again, it's about perspective. A lot of people that live in that way, right? A lot of people who live in that way are perfectly harmonious, and they're seeking to liberate themselves as quickly as possible. Let them folks do it. That's why I keep saying, let these folks do what the hell they do. Not my monkeys, not my circus, not your circus either. We're all going to the same place. It's inevitable. Anyways, Star Lion, peace, peace. My Gnosis, peace and greetings. Good to see you. The same way that, you take a balloon or a basketball or something and you try to push it underwater. As soon as you let go, it's going to shoot right back up because it doesn't belong down there, right? The high pressure within the air that's under pressure within that ball or in that balloon, it is seeking to diffuse itself. That's its natural tendency. So the moment you stop applying your pressure towards the balloon or the ball, it's going to shoot up out of the water. Same way with these forces under high pressure within a manifested universe to diffuse themselves, right? It's their tendency to diffuse themselves into the comparative vacuum of outer space. Thirdly, there's the picture of the penumbra. Who knows what that word means? Penumbra. Thirdly, there's the picture of the penumbra. All those molds which are marred in the making. All those evolutionary concepts which fail in their realization. Think about all the evolutionary concepts that did not make it. Supposedly the earth has been alive for trillions of years. Think about all the evolutions that did not make it to today. I got you, my Gnosis. Interesting. All right, so thirdly, there's the picture of the penumbra. All those molds which are marred in the making, all those evolutionary concepts which fail in their realization, all misplaced forces and souls that have failed in their tasks, being rejected by their individuality. Being rejected by their individuality. All that, in fact, which it is desired to reject from the logoidal consciousness and which has been disintegrated against the inner shell of the ring past not, remains as an image in the reflecting ether of space upon what may be figuratively termed the outer surface of the ring past not. Immediately between that and the ring chaos of the universe, and there may be described. Okay, so we're talking about the law of attraction of outer space. The first principle she talked about was what I called the divine masculine, divine feminine, right? She talked about how it's ever the aim of will, right? Will, masculine, to function unconditioned, just as it is ever the tendency of form, feminine, to condition the unmanifest, right? That's the first aspect. The second aspect is that she said there's a natural tendency towards equilibrium and of the forces under high pressure within a manifested universe to diffuse themselves into the comparative vacuum of outer space. Right? And then, of course, the third principle that she mentioned is that thirdly, there's the picture of the penumbra, right? The shadow, the clip-off, the forgotten, the history, the dark shadows of yesterday, all those evolutionary concepts which failed in their realization, all misplaced forces and souls. Jesus. There are even souls that didn't make the cut, cast into the abyss. I couldn't imagine what that would be like. Sheesh. All right, let's keep going. Any consciousness, and she tells you where they are, right? And she told us where they are before this, right? She mentioned that these types of configurations of spirit and matter are flung out all the way to the firmament, and it is there that they dissolve and wait to be repurposed at some future date. Interesting. Any consciousness, then, which ventures to the nether side of matter will discern across the great gulf, which is the ring past not of the universe, and reflected images of all falsified hopes and abortive attempts at manifestation. And these, as it were, craving for the force which should bring them into manifestation, call across the gulf to whatever elements are akin to them in that which presents itself at the barrier. And so it is that all evolving force, whether in the universe or in the individuality, having penetrated the fundamentals, looks across the great gulf fixed by cosmic law and sees the simulacra of its hopeless dreams promising fulfillment, and is tempted to continue forward on that path of outgoing upon which the divine momentum projected it. Damn, you couldn't stop if you wanted to. And by means of the further momentum acquired by its own motion to leap that gulf into the freedom of outer space where there is no law and men are gods. For when a unit of consciousness escapes from a manifested universe by transcending law, listen close to this, getting into the spooky stuff here. For when a unit of consciousness escapes from a manifested universe by transcending law, because law is consummated in a perfect obedience, it becomes the nucleating center of a new logoidal sun. A new logoidal sun. This is the mystery of Godhead. But when a unit of consciousness that has not mastered the law so escapes, it is an unconditioned will. This is the mystery of evil, personified as devil. Interesting. I want to keep going, but I gotta go back. Mainly to highlight, because I'm definitely reading this again. I feel like this right here could be its own video, honestly. Let me go back to that real quick. While I highlight this, let me know in the chat, what do you think it's like in the abyss? What do you think it's like to be a collection of life force and matter that didn't make the cut of evolution, that did not fit into the grand scheme of things, right? That as time and space passed forward, you found yourself as not being fit to continue in any way, shape, or form, and cast out into the cosmic dumpster. What do you think that's like? Never to be thought of again by any being, not even God. Not even God. Never to be considered again by any living being, not even God. Whew, that's some heavy shit. They couldn't make a movie scary enough. They couldn't write a book. Man, I mean forgotten. Waiting to be dissolved, erased, and repurposed. I ain't never heard no shit like that, except from Dion Fortune, right? Because remember, she talked about Doth in mystical Kabbalah. And to this day, I ain't never heard nobody break down Doth like her. Now, who was it that came close? Her personal student, Gareth Knight, he had a good description, as well as, what's his name? William Gray, right? William G. Gray. See, I thought that my vision of the black sun was painful, but this is worse. The vision of the black sun is a lot similar to this, right? You can think about the solar entity that everyone looks to for life. Everyone looks to the solar entity for sustenance, and we cast all of our hopes and dreams into the solar entity. But the sun has a dark side, the black sun, right? Just like the moon has 4 phases, and one of them is the black phase. The sun has a black phase as well. It's called the black sun. And for everyone's hopes and dreams in something that is an illusion, right? You hoping for this certain person to come back, or you hoping for something to manifest, knowing damn well it never will because you're living in an illusion. All of that energy goes straight to the black sun, right? You continue feeding this black sun with your unfulfilled hopes and dreams. And she talked about something similar here. Having penetrated to fundamentals, looks across the great gulf fixed by cosmic law, and sees the simulacra of its hopeless dreams promising fulfillment, and is tempted to continue forward on that path of outgoing upon which the divine momentum projected it. I even had a vision of at least an abyss, not the abyss, but an abyss. I told this story before when I was really doing my work with Goetia Heavy, and this lady asked me if I could contact her dead husband. And I'm younger and less wise. I'm just thinking, sure, I'd love to do that. I'd be happy to. Provide me with whatever materials you got. And she sent me a picture. She gave me an envelope, and it had a picture of him in his 30s or whatever. It was from the 70s. He was chilling on the beach without a shirt on, with his shades on. And she gave me some other things, and she said, see if you can get in contact with him and give me a message. And she was going to pay me some money for it. And I figured, what harm is it going to do? Man, I sat outside in the woods, surrounded by candles. I did my research, and I found exactly what angel to summon, as well as, first, I had a goetic entity, one used for necromancy. I believe at the time I was using, who was it? I think it was Bifrons I used at the time, Bifrons. And then I also had an angel, to keep watch over my body as I traveled the astral plane. And I went to deep meditation, no music or nothing, just straight up nature, midnight, nobody around. And I shifted into blackness, pure blackness. I focused on the picture, I meditated on the picture before I went in. And I saw him. He was just sitting in darkness. And I was trying to talk to him hey, are you so-and-so? Your wife, she would love to hear a message from you. And all he could say was where am I? Well, you died. And he was just stuck. I'm dead. And he just, that's all that he could process. And for a while, I'm trying to talk to this guy hey, so could you tell me anything about your wife? Da-da-da-da. You have a message for her? Oh my God, I'm dead. It was just that. That's all that I would get out of him. And I started to feel really bad, I shouldn't have done this. This is awful. This man was perfectly sleeping. He was sleeping, and I woke him up to the realization that he was dead. And I came out of that, I was a bit disturbed, because I did not expect that. I thought that I'm going to see this dude floating somewhere. Oh, hey, what do you have for your wife? Tell her I love her, da-da-da-da-da. Nah, this dude was just sitting in blackness, and he didn't realize until then that he was dead. That kind of scarred me a little bit. I never wanted to do necromancy for people, for money, right? Maybe for myself, but not for other people. And I tell you what, I avoided her like the plague. And I work with this woman too. I would go to the other side of the store. I did everything I could to avoid her because I didn't want to tell her what I saw. I didn't know how. She was looking for, you know what I'm saying? She was looking for some comfort and shit. Eventually, I caught back up with her. I told her, I don't even want the money. Here's your pictures. Here's your stuff. And I kind of dropped it on her. I'm I saw him and he didn't know he was dead. No. Yeah. I think I told her that. Right. And then she said, I don't know, a weird turn of events. She took it in a strange way. She's like, oh, so he's waiting for me. He's waiting on the other side for me. That's the best news I've heard in years. He's just sitting there waiting for me so that we can be together again. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, all right, I gotta go now. And I left with the quickness. This was several years ago. But yeah, man, I'm not doing that shit again. It was just so bizarre. Like, I felt it wasn't even pain. It was just like pure confusion, utter confusion. And then she took it as like, oh, he's waiting for me. I'm like, I didn't feel like a waiting for me kind of deal. But, whatever makes you feel better. Woo. I ain't doing that shit again. Like, just telling that story, I can still see him sitting there in like pure black. It was almost like an anime. Like, you could see him perfectly there, well lit and everything, but it was like against a backdrop of pure black. Like, he wasn't in a dark room. He was in the void. But you could see him like perfectly well lit. Anyways, let's get back to this. Praise the Lord. I'm about to go back to Christianity after that, y'all. I can't take it. I'm terrified. I'm going back to Christianity. The only living dead man I'm going to talk to is Jesus. All right, so. By the means of further momentum acquired by its own motion, to leap that gulf into the freedom of outer space where there is no law and men are as gods. Which is true, right? But even though that's true, we don't know what else comes with that, do you? Even in the Bible, where, the serpent influenced Eve to consume the fruit, and Eve influenced Adam to consume the fruit, he said that you'll be as gods, and it was true, but he didn't say the amount of time and the amount of work that had to be put in before you get to that state, right? So I wonder what else is in here that hasn't been unpacked. For when a unit of consciousness escapes from a manifested universe by transcending law, because law is consummated in a perfect obedience, it becomes the nucleating center of a new logoidal sun. This is the mystery of Godhead. But when a unit of consciousness that has not mastered the law so escapes, it is an unconditioned will. This is the mystery of evil personified as devil. This temptation of the nadir comes to all in the course of evolution. From the divine upon the outgoing arc, life has to penetrate into the fundamentals, and having touched the fundamentals, having attained the summit of its powers, it has to reject the temptation of the desire images reflected from outer space and retrace its steps in humility back to the source of its life, winning the realization that freedom is attained not by escape from limitations and conditions, but by adjusting the balance to a perfect equilibrium. Please understand that. I wonder if that's the true message behind the parable of what's that Bible story? The prodigal son. That's it. The prodigal son. Think about yourself in your current stage of evolution. Like, what would you do if you found that you had full creative power, right? You find yourself outside of your body. Maybe your body's done with, and you retained your awareness, and you're creating, and you start to get this inkling that, you know what? I don't even need to be here anymore. I'm gonna go and do my own thing. And you got this magnetism from the void calling you to start over. Start over from scratch. This temptation of the nadir comes to all in the course of evolution. From the divine upon the outgoing arc, life has to penetrate into the fundamentals. And having touched the fundamentals, having attained the summit of its powers, it has to reject the temptation of the desire images reflected from the outer space and retrace its steps in humility back to the source of its life, winning the realization that freedom is attained not by escape from limitations and conditions, but by adjusting the balance to a perfect equilibrium. Equilibrium of conflicting forces being attained, form is stereotyped. Remember, she talked about this before? Form is created when there is an equilibrium of conflicting and complementing forces, right? In other words, when wild and free force starts to enter a pattern, a predictable pattern, it won't be long before it starts to manifest a form. The same way that you pick up habits by repeating them, and eventually it becomes part of your personality. So, equilibrium of conflicting forces being attained, form is stereotyped and can be left to form the corresponding consciousness, and the ensouling life withdraws to a higher plane, bearing with it the reaction capacity acquired on the lower plane, but no longer bound by the conditions of that plane. This will be dealt with more fully in the succeeding lecture. Oh, good. The attraction of outer space, then, is the attraction of unconditioned power. It is the temptation to escape from the laws that have built us up and to exercise the powers gained under these laws without the equivalent responsibility. This may be seen exemplified in the life of the man who, enjoying all the advantages of a highly developed culture, brings to them the aims and the ideals of an unevolved state of existence. Shit, we see that all the time, don't we? The attraction of outer space is the temptation to break away from evolution and the cosmic law and to function as a god. Such gods are those who are propitiated in the rites of devil worship. What do you think about that? The attraction of outer space, then, is the attraction of unconditioned power. Does your mouth salivate at the concept of unconditioned power? Does that get you all hot and bothered, thinking about unconditioned power? Maybe it does. But I think I about had my fill of generating karma. I about had my fill of generating karma. All right, let's keep going. Keep going. Anna Molly, what is that raised eyebrow at? So we just talked about the law of the attraction of outer space. Let's flip this thing around and try the other angle. The law of the attraction of the center. If you're liking this content, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps. Even if it just helps a little bit, it helps. Chapter 31. The law of the attraction of the center. The law of the attraction of the center contains the secret of the mystery of love. It may be considered under three aspects. Firstly, in relation to evolution. Secondly, in relation to initiation. And thirdly, in relation to devolution and the left-hand path. That's another magical buzzword thrown around that hardly anyone knows what it means. Let's dig into it. 1. In relation to evolution. When a form of life has attained its utmost complexity of material organization, unification begins. When a form of life has attained its utmost complexity of material organization, unification begins. This is obtained by means of synthesis upon a higher plane, and this having been secured, devolution of the physical form sets in. This marks the transition through the nadir of the evolutionary arc. Let us elaborate this concept. Ideas of life expression having been evolved by entities of a higher grade than the life forms under consideration, such ideas are projected upon these life forms in the etheric kingdom as they are approaching materialization. And in the malleable matter of the etheric type, they are worked out, and this acts as a framework for the subsequent physical form. The life forces compelled to circulate in the forms built in matter develop a set of magnetic stresses. The life forces compelled to circulate in the forms built in matter develop a set of magnetic stresses. These having been developed, the material form can be discarded, and the system of magnetic stresses remains as an etheric mold. Thus does the inceptive idea pass through the plane of manifestation of matter and become a conceptive idea. All right, you understand that, right? So, what she's saying here is that, talking about these patterns being set into motion, we can just say, for example, here you are in your physical body and you're doing your thing, and you've achieved the apex of your spiritual evolution, right? And in doing so, the etheric form of your body, right? It's we can just say, for sake of example, a direct replica of your physical body. You've now learned to live in the etheric body. So once your physical body's finished and discarded, you still maintain the same exact form, but now on the etheric plane. So you're not this wild and loose flowing mass like most people, attempting to hold some sort of shape or some sort of color based on how they feel or what they're thinking about at the time. You've managed to develop a solid framework for your vessel. Now your life continues on this etheric plane. So she says, the life forces compelled to circulate in the forms built in matter develop a set of magnetic stresses, right? That's the magnetic mold. That's why if you cut your fingernails, they grow back in the same shape, or no matter how many cells in your body die and pass away, a new one comes to replace it. Like, you always keep the same form, even though the individual pieces of matter that compose your body are constantly growing and decaying. Right? These have been developed. The material form can be discarded, and the system of magnetic stresses remains as an etheric mold. Thus does an inceptive idea pass through the planes of manifestation of matter and become a conceptive idea. So that is how and why certain things that are strengthened in the physical plane can pass over into the subtle planes and remain just as potent and just as powerful. There's a key right there. There are many different devices employed for obtaining the same result, and though each of these owes its inception to a different inceptive idea, a different attempt to work out a design, the conceptive idea of perfect adaptation is the same for all. So that which was multiplicity in its origin, by the perfection of its development arrived at unity. So that which was multiplicity in its origin, it was multiplicity to begin with, by the perfection of its development, arrived at unity. So you being a multiplicitous being, composed of many different things, by perfecting your development, all these different parts of you become a unity. On one accord, one Honda Accord. Isn't that what yoga teaches? Ultimately. What does yoga mean? Highlighting all that. One is the symbol of the first manifest. Whatever reduces multiplicity to unity, or a complex concrete to a simple abstract, is approaching the center. The approach to the center is not a movement in space, but a unification. Nice. So look, this approach to the center, the spiritual journey that we talk about, the spiritual path that we talk about, it's not actually a journey or a path in space, right? You're not going anywhere physically. You're conceptually moving towards unification. It's an awareness. It's a perspective, like I said earlier. Like I said earlier in this very video, it might seem like there's discord and chaos and imbalance all over the place, but that's just the perspective that you're seeing reality from. Zoinks, zoinks, zoinks. Now note the difference between unification and simplification, because this is the clue to much. Unification is achieved by evolution, and simplification is achieved by devolution. Unification is the full synthesis. Simplification is the ultimate analysis or return to type. One is the advancement to completion. The other is a regression to the commencement. You get that? You see the difference between unification and simplification? The concept of the return to the center might be considered as an extension of the center. I like that. might be considered as an extension of the center. For when return to the center takes place, the center is thereby extended. And we are taught that the return to the center is the goal of evolution. If this idea be meditated upon, it will be seen that such a return to the center should involve the extension of the center. For if all that is external becomes internal, the boundary must be extended. Oath of the Abyss. Perhaps you saw the video I did on Thursday about working with the elementals, talking about how the outer world and the inner world have to be reconciled. That boundary has to be dissolved. These are going to be concepts that you're going to continually come across at this particular level of the lesson. In very truth, it may be conceived that the return to the center means that the center is extended to the circumference, and all things are as is the center. This implies the spiritualization of all the planes. Now that might not sound as spooky and scary as what was in the last chapter, but this is absolutely something that most people are not ready for. Because it's easier to cling to separation. It's easier to cling to differences. It's easier to cling to an illusion. Such a concept has two aspects, the form aspect and the force aspect. Force flows towards the center, withdrawing from the circumference. It therefore follows that the center, to accommodate it, must flow out. Thus it is, the substance of each plane, having had its native form withdrawn, is recast by the influences of the extending center into approximate forms to those which will prevail upon the seventh plane. The withdrawing of force marks the end of a cosmic day and the beginning of a cosmic night. The outflowing of the center is the work of the cosmic night. The secrets of the cosmic night have never been revealed before. Chat's kind of quiet tonight. Must be the full moon in Cancer. Excuse me, new moon. Waxing moon. Actually, I think it moved out of Cancer today or tomorrow. I don't know. Let's keep going. The secrets of the cosmic night have never been revealed before. The outflow of pure spirit over all planes of matter takes place during the cosmic night. and the archetypal forms remaining in the vicinity of the magnetic stresses are thereby galvanized, but they have no real life, having as yet no reincarnating principle, and therefore no memory. And at the end of the cosmic night, the spiritual tides withdraw, leaving the field to the emptiness of the cosmic dawn. But the forms over which the cosmic tide has flowed have been adjusted to the cosmic stresses, and therefore all types of evil have been corrected. This is the cleansing of matter which takes place between each cosmic day and neutralizes the forces of inertia. And as the forces of inertia have their roots in the law of limitation, and the law of limitation has its roots in cosmic evil, you will see the significance of the work of the cosmic night. And you also see the deeper significance in the words, the powers of darkness. It is necessary, if you are to understand the deeper implications of occultism, that you should see that darkness leads through twilight into dawn, and day leads through twilight to darkness. Good and evil may be conceived of as areas of light and shadow through which a spinning ring evolved, and evil has its work to do as well as good. The God of light and the God of darkness are but the actions of the right and left hand of the Father. The right hand gives, and the left hand takes away. The right hand gives that which is to be, and the left takes away that which has been. The right sends out into manifestation, and the left beckons back again. But you, looking as in a mirror, call right left and left right. She just dropped a bomb right there. Wait a minute now. Not only does one lead to the other, but we got it backwards. And I get it. It's because we observe through the microcosm. I get it. I get it. So the right hand gives that which is to be, and the left takes away that which has been. So you can switch that around and say that that's actually she says that we're looking at a mirror. That's a lot to think about. The church is evil. The devil is good. The attraction of the center takes place up the path of returning. And should that attraction set in prematurely, it causes the life to flow back to an earlier aspect. This involves a devolution of life before there is a devolution of form. When this returning flow takes place, hold on now, returning flow. Dion Fortune says what's up. When this returning flow takes place in relation to life, we see the development of parasitic types of existence. This explains the problem of bacterial disease. Other types of life which are saprophytic are not of this evolution at all, but are functioning under the dominion of the lords of the dark face, who are scavengers of the gods. Lords of the dark face, who are scavengers of the gods. Sounds cool. Maybe she'll get into it. It may be said, in parentheses, that there are two types of bacterial disease, parasitic and saprophytic, which may occur independently or simultaneously. This is an idea which can be elaborated, but it will not be done now. You will perceive from the foregoing that a return to the center means a fading of day of manifestation, and as the daylight fades, the spiritualizing darkness of the unmanifest flows over the fields of matter. And this must always be borne in mind in considering this problem, for as the light withdraws from the outer circuit of matter, so the spiritualizing influences begin to flow out from the innermost circuit of spirit. And this process continues until such time as all light be withdrawn, and the concentric circle of manifestation be completely overflowed with the cleansing waters of darkness. But meanwhile, there's a transition stage during which the waters of darkness, which is a symbol of peace, cleansing, and regeneration, make preparation for new life. These waters, then, are percolating through the planes of manifestation, so that the seen will be interpenetrated by the unseen. This brings us to the second aspect of the subject of the attraction of the center, the question of initiation. Yeah, that's the Great Flood, all right. That's the Great Flood, all right. And what did the biblical flood do? What did the biblical flood do? Exactly what she described. So even written in that book was somebody's remembering of this cosmic night. Even if it was a story passed down from thousands of years before it was written. And of course, we know the Bible isn't the only place where we see the Great Flood. Perhaps the people of Atlantis, or maybe some other cultures, became so advanced that they stereotyped their bodies on the etheric and the astral plane, thereby no longer needing to incarnate on planet Earth. Maybe these physical bodies that we're currently utilizing are the leftovers, the shells, right? The leftover forms of those who've already graduated. Number 2, in relation to initiation, those entities that have returned to the center at the conclusion of their evolution flow out again as the forerunners of the shadow of the spirit. It is these who are the initiators. They themselves have been enabled to progress in advance of evolution by being themselves initiated by developed entities of previous evolutions, according to the planes on which they took initiation. So there's the perks of being initiated and doing the work. You get the early access pass. You get to beta test the next incarnations. So either we're the leftovers from Atlantis, or we're beta testing the next phase, or perhaps both, or perhaps neither. Interesting things to think about. So, in relation to initiation, those entities that have returned to the center at the conclusion of their evolution, flow out again as the forerunners of the shadow of spirit. So, as she said here, they already reached the conclusion of their evolution, right? They reached the end of it. And just like what she said in the beginning of this chapter, they flow out again as forerunners of the shadow of the spirit. It is these who are the initiators. They themselves have been enabled to progress in advance of evolution by being themselves initiated by developed entities of previous evolutions, according to the planes on which they took initiation. According to the planes on which they took initiation, the lords of each plane being the completed fruits of the evolution, which had its culmination on that plane. These are the initiators of each evolution, until those who are initiated, themselves having passed through the life, are proceeding outwards again. By the action of these entities, those who are initiated proceed from the surface to the substratum of their plane, and it is only when the waters of regeneration have penetrated through the cracks and fissures of receptive consciousness to a plane, the initiation can take place on that plane. Thus it is that at this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body. For in this phase of evolution, the waters of regeneration have not yet reached the physical plane. Number 3, in relation to devolution. The attraction of the center has a third aspect in devolution, or the way of the left-hand path if applied to consciousness. Peace, Kevros, SS Code. In relation to evolution, devolution means the withdrawal of life from any given type of form and the disintegration of these forms. The systems of magnetic stresses which life generated in them are then left as empty shells upon the etheric subplanes. These shells should wait the cleansing of the waters of regeneration that flow out in the tide of the cosmic night. So yeah, with that being said, perhaps we are the leftovers. Because most definitely, those who came before us were far more advanced in almost every way. In every way, fuck it. Those who came before us were far more advanced in every way. Hand-me-down bodies. Hand-me-down forms. But, you know, that's how Prakriti works, right? I ain't got no problem with it. I'm not staying here. It happens sometimes, however, that souls which are sufficiently developed have reached the point when they feel the attraction of the center upon the path of returning. Yet are insufficiently developed in certain aspects to be ready for evolution because they have not yet sufficiently undergone involution. They may set out to return to the center before they have passed the nadir. They will then be moving through planes from which the life has withdrawn, and whereon lie the empty shells, awaiting the coming of the tides of the cosmic night. These souls will then avail themselves of the systems of magnetic stresses of primitive types for the expression of their functions. This will explain much if meditated upon. Every time she says that, you should leave like a little star next to that and go back and meditate on it. Metaphysical Osama Kate, greetings. Read that again. It sometimes happens, however, that souls which are sufficiently developed have reached the point when they feel the attraction of the center upon the path of returning, yet are insufficiently developed in certain aspects to be ready for evolution because they have not yet sufficiently undergone involution. These may set out to return to the center before they have passed the nadir. They will then be moving through planes from which the life has withdrawn, and whereon lie the empty shells awaiting the coming of the tides of the cosmic night. These souls will then avail themselves of the systems of the magnetic stresses of primitive types for the expression of their functions. This will explain much if meditated upon. Dang, I wonder if she's talking about us. Because if you didn't catch that, what she's saying here is that with each wave, like remember she talked about this before, with each wave on each planet, on each plane, forces of consciousness come through and they start to develop these bodies, and those bodies start to develop habits and patterns, right? Let's say that we have this human body that's developed, right? It's what the consciousness has formed because they realize, it's going to be very dang. I think she's talking about us. It's going to become very easy to navigate the physical plane through a body with 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 toes, 10 fingers, a nose and mouth and 2 ears, right? Hair on the top and on the bottom. Perhaps the consciousness of this wave thought it not robbery to use this vehicle of expression. And then over the generations and generations, everything that could possibly be done, for better or for worse, was done, right? And then came time for those souls to hit evolution. After they did it already, I said it already, I ain't got no more talking. We finished or we done. After we reached that level, consciousness evolved. And those souls and those spirits and that group soul got the hell on out to the next level. And left behind in the etheric plane, the Akashic library, these human physical forms, right? Because that's what they used, that's what they mastered. There's no more need for it. Kept it moving. Now, what happens is, though, that batch of souls, that group, they keep going. They keep going around the circle, evolving and experiencing more things, and they keep on going until they reach the very outer limit, the firmament of the cosmos, the ring past none. And once they reach that level, and they've reached the evolution of evolutions, they begin their journey back home, right? And they do it all over again, but from a higher perspective, right? And that's the circle or the spiral that they complete. And what she's talking about here is there are some people in that class who didn't graduate. The same way that you go to school and everybody doesn't make it to the next grade the same time as you. Some people get held back a grade or 2, right? Same thing happens here with these group souls. Some didn't get all the lessons. Some maybe got stuck or hung up on certain things. And when they see the rest of their class turning that corner, they're way back here. And they say, I want to turn the corner as well. But what happens is they didn't make it around the full clock. So what they end up doing is they end up going back to forms that they just left from. So let me read that again with that understanding. It sometimes happens, however, that souls which are sufficiently developed have reached the point when they feel the attraction of the center upon the path of returning, right? So they're going around and they feel that pull to come back. Because look, it's supposed to be a circle. You're supposed to go all the way around the circle. So she says that sometimes it happens, however, that souls which are sufficiently developed have reached the point when they feel the attraction of the center upon the path of returning, yet are insufficiently developed in certain aspects. They didn't finish all the lessons. They didn't get all the understandings. They didn't complete everything. They're not there yet, but they think they're there. They feel they're there, but they know they're not. Have you ever felt that way? You ever felt ready to move on to the next thing, knowing damn well you're not ready? So look, she says, yet are insufficiently developed in certain aspects to be ready for evolution because they have not yet sufficiently undergone involution. These may set out to return to the center before they have passed the nadir, shortcut. They will then be moving through planes from which the life has withdrawn. So, have you ever seen the movie The Langoliers? It's an old movie. It's from like the 90s, I want to say. It's a Stephen King story. And it's about these people at a plane station. And I think they missed their plane or something. But what actually happens is they got sent 5 minutes into the past, right? So there they are on this abandoned airplane station, airport, right? They're wondering where the hell everybody is, what's going on with the planes. I think somehow they end up flying the plane. Maybe the pilot is one of them. I don't know. But they come to realize that they've been shifted back 5 minutes into the past. And what's actually happening is that there's these little creatures that eat old matter, right? So with them being 5 minutes in the past, they realize that there are these creatures that are consuming everything to kind of get rid of it because it's done. And if they don't move into the future, they're going to be consumed by these Langoliers. So it's like, I don't know, they're on this plane. I don't remember how the movie went, but I thought that was a terrifying concept as a kid. But yeah, what we're talking about, the reason I brought that up is because, like, imagine, like, the class of souls have went through the humanity process and have lived as human bodies and then graduated. So literally we have here in this shifted this meta dimension the archetypal form of human bodies just everywhere, all over Earth. Matter of fact, there's archetypal forms of trees and lizards and bugs and all sorts of things, but there's no life in them. They're literally just the shells waiting for the next class. So imagine being part of that class that was graduating, but then getting held back. And as you see the class cross that line, finishing their race, you decide you don't want to get left behind and you try to quickly cross too. But where you actually end up going is backwards to those shells you just left. Maybe a little bit more advanced, but not by much. They will then be moving through planes from which the life has withdrawn, and whereon lie the empty shells, awaiting the coming of the tides of the cosmic night. And remember what you said about the cosmic night? That's when spirit overflows all matter and wipes it clean. Wipes it clean. Clean from karma, clean from memory, clean from good and evil. Neutralizes it all, but the forms stay, right? And once the cleaning has, once Mother Nature has come through and cleaned everything, once Mama Prakriti has come through, Mother Bina has wiped it all clean, now come the new class to take those forms. And now somebody ain't got a seat because you sitting in his seat. Interesting. So these souls will then avail themselves of the systems of magnetic stresses of primitive types for the expression of their functions. This will explain much if meditated upon. So I wonder, some people that didn't complete human class and went back to, I don't know, monkeys or dinosaurs or hell, who knows? Who knows? Perhaps there's angels who didn't complete their class and came back as humans. Who knows? Hazard Pi says that's why you have to go through the middle pillar, not left or right. That's the way I see it, to be honest with you. To be honest with you. I was just thinking of Tool today. And Amali says Mom's coming around to put it back the way it ought to be. Tool and this will explain much if meditated upon. When, however, these souls, having outworn and destroyed the shells, and thereby impeded subsequent evolution, impeded, right? You slowed it down and stopped it up. You clogged up the pipeline, tried to take a shortcut, came back and impeded evolution. You slowing down the whole next class because you done took somebody's seat. Interesting. When, however, these souls, having outworn and destroyed the shells and thereby, right, because you don't fit in the seat anymore, right? Don't fit in it anymore. You too big for it. You done broke the seat. Now everything has to pause so the metaphysical janitors can come in and clean up the mess. And now somebody got to get a busted up, broken up body. Half the class missing arms and legs because they had to patch it together for somebody else. Because you tried to squeeze into a little something that you know ain't gonna fit you. You know, broke the back. Now somebody gotta be born handicapped. And thereby impeded subsequent evolution. Continue on their devolutionary path. They reach a point where there are no more shells for their ensouling, and they will then be unable to maintain form and will dissolve into the unorganized elements of substance and cease to be potent for evil or potential for good. That is the record of the left-hand path. Well, damn. She said, that's your left-hand path. Well, y'all want to know about the left-hand path? That is your left-hand path. That's not me. I don't spit it. Automatically, systematically. Really? You kind of spit when you talk. That's not me. I don't spit it. That's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's spitting a lot. Automatically, systematically. Let's continue. But yeah, so holding up the class, but not only holding up the class, but continuing on that devolutionary path. Because like she said, you took that shortcut. So instead of going around the full circle like you were intended to do, you took a shortcut. Now you've created a smaller circle. I think I see where this is going. Now you done created a smaller circle. So not only do you go back to where you just came from, but now you're heading back before that, right? Going all the way. Ooh, think about the parasites that live in the human bowels. Ooh, think about coronavirus and AIDS virus and all these different tiny organisms that become very complicated for human beings to deal with. She said they continued in their devolutionary path. They reach a point where there are no more shells for their ensouling. Imagine that you're too big now to fit in anything. Too complex of a consciousness to fit in any form. And they will then be unable to maintain form and will dissolve into the unorganized elements of substance and cease to be potent for evil or potential for good. This is the record of the left-hand path. Evolution by the right-hand path is accomplished through the withdrawal of the perfected life from the forms which separate. Evolution by the right-hand path is accomplished through the withdrawal of the perfected life from the forms which separate, the synthesis of the principles which the forms were designed to express, the sublimation of the principles into ideals, and the realization of the ideals by cosmic consciousness, such as the record of evolution upon the right-hand path. Did you get what she said there? It was kind of a lot and seemingly disjointed, but let's put it together. So we're talking about evolution by the right-hand path. We just talked about left-hand path. The right-hand path is accomplished through the withdrawal of perfected life from the forms which separate. By the way, what she means by that is the life force within these forms, like right now your life force is within your physical body and your ideas and your beliefs and your ego and your attitude. All those are forms that your life force is inhabiting. Now, as we mentioned a few pages ago, at some point, the physical shell is going to break, it's going to dissolve, it's going to be no more. By that time, hopefully, you've solidified your etheric body so you can continue in that way. In other words, that form, the life within your form has been perfected so we can continue. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, imagine you have this glass jar and you put some Jello mix in there with some hot water and you stir it up. You know that if you put it in the fridge, that Jello is going to take the shape of that glass jar. Now, if we could just magically dissolve the glass jar, the Jello is going to stay there in that shape, right? So we can say that evolution by the right-hand path is accomplished through the withdrawal of the perfected life from the forms which separate. So imagine being able to take the Jello out of that jar, and the Jello now keeps its shape, right? That's what you want to do with your life force. You want that life force to be perfected due to the work in the body. She says the synthesis, and what does that mean? The synthesis of the principles which the forms were designed to express. So in other words, the form that you have right now, it has a purpose for Prakriti, right? Now the consciousness has its own thing, but while you're in this body, there are some things you're specifically supposed to learn. Otherwise, you would have been a spider or a roach or, a Godzilla. So she said the synthesis of the principles which the forms were designed to express, the sublimation of the principles into ideals. So you take those principles that you've now come into the awareness of, right? Go back to our Jello in the jar. Now the Jello knows what it's like to be. I can leave right there. The Jello knows what it's like to be. It's not just Kool-Aid mixed powder. It's not just hot water. It's not just cold temperature. It is now a new thing, because that's what it was designed to be. It was designed to be Jello in the shape of a jar. And once it has reached that, it can think about the higher principles of being a jar-shaped piece of Jello. Right? The sublimation of the principles into ideals. Now it can start a Jello philosophy. Now it can understand the higher meta perspective of coming from separate parts into a new thing. And how and why it has become that way. Right? And then the realization of those ideals by cosmic consciousness. So in other words, once the Jello in the shape of a jar realizes what it is and how it came to be, that understanding is now absorbed by its higher self. Now the higher self knows all about life as being Jello-shaped, jar-shaped Jello pieces, right? The higher self now can pull up the information of blue jar-shaped Jello, green jar-shaped Jello, can pull from the experiences of all its different incarnations. Now it understands jar-shaped Jello existence. You follow me? Such is the record of evolution upon the right-hand path. So evolution it's almost as if you realize a new level. Once you fully realize your specific purpose, you suddenly zoom up and understand the collective unconscious. Then you zoom up again, and you zoom up until you reach the awareness of the higher self. I hope that you understood that. Thank you, Minosis. It will be seen then that the essence of evolution is unification. The essence of evolution is unification. Think about why I chose Jello, right? Have you ever made Jello? We've all made Jello. We've all been kids before. Have you? And here, let's go back to the souls who didn't graduate on time with the other souls. Have you ever been impatient with your Jello? Have you ever been a little kid, maybe did it with your mom, your dad, or whoever, mixed up that Jello powder in the hot water and poured it into the dish, and you keep checking back on it every 5 minutes and it's still liquid, right? And you got caught because at some point You done left a fingerprint in there because you've been dipping your fingers in it or scooping with a spoon. And as it's been solidifying, you've been impatient and, you know, right? We've done that before. So look, it will be seen then that the essence of evolution is unification. And the manifestation of the unifactory principle upon the planes of manifestation is love. All right, so the essence of evolution is unification. Boom. The whole essence of evolution is unification. Go back to this. It's about that jar-shaped jello, red, realizing what it is. The blue-shaped jello, right? Those are two different entities. The yellow-shaped jello, the yellow jar-shaped jello, the green jar-shaped jello. All these different separate jar-shaped jello experiences suddenly come together. It's like the 100th monkey. And the higher self of jello realizes the jar-shaped jello experience and knows it intimately. And guess what? In another dimension, in another fridge, there's square-shaped jello and cup-shaped jello and upside-down dome-shaped jello and all these different types. All that data gets sucked up into the higher self and it understands the total jello experience. Unification, right? Unification. So check this out. It will be seen then that the essence of evolution is unification. And the manifestation, right? What's it look like? What's it smell like, taste like, touch, feel like? The manifestation of the unificatory. The manifestation of the unificatory principle upon the planes of manifestation is love. Love is what it looks like. Love is what unification looks, and it's true, right? Because as a red jar-shaped jello, you might hate blue jar-shaped jello, right? That just might have been a war as old as time. Blue jar-shaped jello hates red jar-shaped jello. Bing, bang, boom. Y'all don't even remember why y'all fighting anymore. But love is when that consciousness transcends those colors and those shapes and realizes that jello is jello. Jello is gonna do jello shit. It's jello. There's no choice but to love. How can you hate yourself? The awakened, enlightened jello tries to teach all the other jellos that they're all the same. They're all the same ingredients, same process of creation. We all had to go through the boiling hot water. We all had to go through the cooling process. We all had to take time to set into our mold. Your fridge might be different. They might have sat you next to the barbecue sauce. They might have had an open bowl of raw fish next to you, right? And you over here, you got the good life. You were covered up in a nice Tupperware, right? You over there had a little plastic sheet on top of you, right? Each experience was different, for sure. And it's a different story for each different jar of jello, each different bowl of jello, right? But at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, literally all the same thing. All right, so love. Love is the manifestation of the unification principle upon the planes of manifestation. Right? Love. And that don't mean, oh, let me go hug and kiss and give you flowers. Like, no, love is literally an understanding that I am you and you are me. There ain't really no difference. Oath of the abyss. Everything that I do, I'm only doing it to myself. Golden rule. Whether that love be intellectual sympathy on the plane of the concrete mind or physical unity on the plane of matter, love in all its aspects is the symbol of the Logos as one. The aim of evolution is to make all things one. And upon the plane of manifestation, there are but two things which make all thing one. What are those two things? Death and love. Death is the manifestation of the left-hand path, And love is the manifestation of the right-hand path. Juicy food. Ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum. Juicy. Now I'm gonna have to make some jello with my son. I'm gonna have to make 2 different colored jellos and teach him this lesson. Like, you see, son, jello is jello. Love is love. Damn about that. Death is the manifestation of the left-hand path, and love is the manifestation of the right-hand path. Whose loves, however dim may be his concept of love, is manifesting a unification. And unification is the goal of evolution. God is one. Love makes one. Therefore, it is truly said, God is love. Whosoever expresses love brings spirit, which is one, into manifestation. To be loving is to be good. Whosoever expresses hate brings separateness into manifestation. To be separate is to be dead. Therefore, choose love and live. Uh-oh. Powerful stuff. Now, normally I would love to keep going, but this next section is like 30 pages with no stop. And I don't really want to stop in the middle of a chapter because that's kind of funky. So I'd rather stop it here, and we'll come back and we'll dig into the 30 pages of afterthoughts. And apparently this was another download, a separate download that she got years after this initial download. So they swung back around on that cosmic arc to drop off some more information into Miss Dion Fortune's consciousness. FedEx delivery. Cosmic doctrine. The doctrine is of a cosmic nature. Do you hear that? Thank you. That was the phrase that I didn't know that I was even looking for. Spent the blow. They drove that spaceship back around. Cosmic DoorDash. All right, so yeah, this is where we're going to stop for now. I have good reason to. This next section is going to be a lot to digest, as been this whole book, right? So I hope that you got something useful and appropriate out of this. If you haven't, I would say go back and check my last live stream that I did, talking about elementals and spirits coming through YouTube or whatever. Check that video out. A lot of good stuff about elementals and why they're important. You're never not working with elementals, whether you're magical or not. Everyone is. That's how we experience life. That's how we experience life. So it helps to have some awareness of the nature of these elementals. Because just like how she talked about these entities being sent off in a certain direction and not being able to change that route, you do the same thing with elementals, which are within your universe. You send them elementals out, and they continue on their path doing what you sent them to do. Now, that happens with people who have bad habits, people who get angry, people who hold grudges, people who are violent. They're constantly sending out elementals that convey their energies. Everyone does it, but a master does it with intention, and a master helps his elementals to evolve. So I will see you later on this week. I'll be posting more now that I finally got my setup back together, as you can see. We'll be doing this. We'll be finishing this book next Saturday, right at this time. Where will we go from there next? I have an idea. I'm still deciding whether or not we're going to go with it. Since we're talking all scientific here. There's a particular book. There is an audiobook of it online, but of course, he ain't doing it like I'm finna do it. I'm deciding if I should wait to tell you guys what it is, or go ahead and tell you now. Next comment will decide. Go. Oh, there it is. Fat Tony gave a question mark, so I guess that's what it will be. I'll leave it up in the air. Nice. I knew that was going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to be a yes, I'll tell you that much. Sunshine Chick says, why wait? Because I'm still trying to decide if that's the direction I want to go. If it's a right vibrational fit. But I'll definitely let you know next time. Because I have that main one and there's 2 runners up. And they'd all be great. But, Night Side of Eden is one of the runners up, actually. One of the runners up. But I guess I just need to sit down and really, really just make that decision. I gotta consult the group egregore. Sunshine 6 says, I think I have an idea of the book. You probably do. I'm guaranteed you probably already have it. I'm guaranteed you already have it. It'll be one that I've talked about before, but one that I haven't really explored in depth because it wasn't time. God damn. Listen, what I'm gonna need you to do, ma'am, is to turn that psychic awareness off of me so I can keep my secrets, please. And thank you. Golly. I need you to turn that radar to the left just a little bit so I can keep my mystery. Shit. Could at least give a wrong guess first. Could at least guessed wrong. Made it look like a challenge. Now I feel wide open. Close my windows. Oh, I know what it is. Boom. Sunshine Shake says, I just pulled that book back out. Yeah, me too. Me too. And it really aligns with this. But there's also some Kenneth Grant and there's also some something else. Just different things to weigh and consider. But anyways, there's a few options. More than likely we're gonna go with the one that you psychically tuned in. All right. There you have it. My favorite people in the universe. We kind of finished, but we got a little bit more to go through. They spent the block, so we got to see what they dropped off this time. Good stuff, good stuff. Happy to be back. I had a nice break from social media, the internet. And I feel a bit refreshed in my creativity. Wrapped up the cyclomancy class, second round. I'm really happy to hear that the students have implemented these exercises into their daily lives and are actually doing things with it. That's really cool to hear. We're going to have a follow-up meeting, so if you were part of that cyclomancy class even the first time around, 2 weeks from now exactly, so let's see, 14, this is the 22nd of June. If you were in the cyclomancy class, join us for a follow-up session, right? I want to see how you've been using cyclomancy or how things have been going with you, whether you're in the first class or the second class. I'll make a post on the website. Check that out. You've been studying it. You've been practicing it. I want to see what you've been up to, what kind of experiences you've had. Other pieces of news. I'm gonna reignite the Discord. How many people here use Discord? That's the first question. Second question is, would you use Discord if you had a reason to? Because honestly, the rest of these social media sites, they don't really have a good way to connect, kind of like this. At least Discord kind of gives somewhat of a 24/7 chat to where, like, if you have an experience or an idea or something you want to talk about or whatever, that could be a channel that, we can open back up and do the thing. If you're interested in that, then check my website. I'll be rolling out the links. If you're in the cyclomancy class and you already have the link. All right. Calling it a night. I hope you guys do well. I know you will. Keep doing the right thing. Check out my last video if you did not. Spirits coming through YouTube, that kind of thing. Have a great evening, great weekend, great week. It's always fun. Always fun. Love you guys. And gals. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you. I hope that you are making the absolute best of your existence. Focus on your goals. Focus on your intentions. You have zero bandwidth to spend on distractions. You have zero time, zero awareness. You cannot afford to focus on the distractions. Focus only on the reality that you're manifesting. Maintain your frame. I've been saying that from day one. Maintain your frame.